Hari Om. Wish you all very happy Gita Jayanti. Gita Jayanti is celebrated on Shukla Ekadashi during the auspicious month of Margashirsha. It's a day when Bhagavan taught Arjuna the realities of life, the realities of oneself, knowing which Arjuna became free from sorrow. So in Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan gives a message for us to contemplate upon. This message is conveyed at the very beginning and at the end of Lord's teaching. This teaching itself starts in the second chapter with the words Ashocyan Anvashochaha Tvam. You are grieving for that which should not be grieved for. There is no reason to grieve. You are sad for what you think that it is a valid reason, but actually it is not a valid reason. The last words that Lord Krishna utters in Bhagavad Gita are Ma Shuchaha, do not grieve. Arjuna was overcome by sorrow. He thought, all of my relatives have come here, my near and dear ones are here. How can I kill them? What's the use of victory and kingdom if I get them by killing these people? What is important about Arjuna's sorrow is that it arose from a sense of helplessness, a sense of being a victim. Nothing can cause me sorrow unless it gets connected in some way to I. For anything to create an impact on I, it should get connected in some way to I. When my son becomes a doctor, I am happy. My daughter gets married, I become happy. Thousands of people become doctors. Thousands more get married. Nothing happens to me. If it is my son or my daughter, however, that is different. Similarly, when does sorrow come? When someone dear to me passes away, I am bereaved. Many people die every day. People are killed or soldiers die in wars. We watch this in news and do get affected to some extent. But if I happen to see the name of some young man who was my son's friend, familiar to me, then the sorrow is particularly deep because it's a personal loss. So ultimately the reason for Arjuna's sorrow, the one for whom Arjuna was grieving, was himself. This is a very fundamental thing to be understood from Bhagavad Gita, and that is why we say the sorrow is centered on I. If what happens to someone else gets connected to I in some way, and a sense of loss, guilt or hurt is created in I, then I definitely find myself sorrowful. It's the prospect of the death of his near and dear ones, that made Arjuna sad. This is why Lord Krishna addresses this question. What is death? Am I really subject to death? So Bhagavad Gita addresses the realities of life, including the reality of oneself. Other things, the topical problems such as success, failure, etc., that we face in our life are also addressed subsequently. Wrong understanding of situations of myself cause the sorrow. Lord Krishna addresses the problem of death and reveals what is born, who dies. Bhagavan says, Natvivaham jatu nasam. There never was a time when I was not. That means I always was. It's not that I was not and that I came into being. So there was no birth for me. Then Bhagavan says, Natvam na ime janadipaha. Well, Arjuna, there was never a time when you were not. There was never a time when all these barriers were not. Which means nobody is ever born. I, the self, is free from birth. Then Arjuna might have said, all right, perhaps there is no birth. But I know when the battle is over, nobody will survive. They will all die. Bhagavan said, Nachaivana bhavishyamaha sarve vayam atah param. There will never be a time we will not be. That means there is no death. Body takes birth. Body dies. I, the consciousness, who is witness to this body, distinct from the body, is free from birth and death. Taking body as oneself, one perceives that I am subject to birth and death. So we need to be told this only because we have a perception that the self is born and that it dies, which is quite contrary to the reality of the self. We base our whole life not on what it is, but on how we perceive it. And this perception, wrong perceptions alone are causing problem to us. On this auspicious day, let us pray to Lord Krishna so that we gain the vision of Bhagavad Gita and make ourselves also free from sorrow. Hari Om.